Third part. Chapter 41. This feather is different. Arthur didn't know that Gary wanted to surpass him in the trainer field. If he knew, he would definitely laugh his teeth off. Gary wanted to surpass him, but he was at least several ashes behind. Unless Ash cheated to the journey level, it would be almost impossible for him to catch up with him. And when Gary and the others became stronger, Arthur himself didn't know what level he would reach by then. Okay, let's not think about Squirtle for now. I'm going to rest too. When people get old, their energy will decrease. After collecting some data on Sylvian, Professor Oak typed a yawn, and after saying hello to a few people, he walked towards his room. Gary, Squirtle thief. Casey. Professor Oak usually lives on the first floor, and Gary is out, so it doesn't seem impossible. However, Casey May couldn't agree to this directly. She just shrank her head and acted like a quail. As long as I didn't agree directly, I would be passive. Seeing Casey May like this, Arthur understood and picked Casey May up in a princess hug and went upstairs, leaving several Pokémon looking at each other. Especially Dratini and Dragonair, who showed a blank look on their faces. They just came here, and they didn't know what to do at this time. Fortunately, Sylvian showed her attitude as a big sister at this time and took care of them. The next day, Arthur slept until he woke up naturally and found that there was still a pendant on his body. Casey May was lying on Arthur's body at this moment. Thinking of what happened yesterday, Arthur also showed a smile. Although he still hadn't reached the last step, except for the last step, what should have happened still happened. Just at this time, Casey May also opened her eyes. Obviously, looking at the handsome face close at hand, Casey May was also stunned, and her whole brain was in a dead contest condition. Good morning, Casey May. Arthur greeted Casey May with a sunny smile. Casey May was a little dazed. She also remembered what happened yesterday at this time. Her feet were still cramped. This made Casey May a little confused. Where did Arthur learn so many things? Could it be that he had a new dog outside? But it's not the case. As for Arthur's social network, Casey May knew it clearly. In addition to her own side, there was also Lily, who she knew in Alola region. She kept in touch with Arthur for a long time, but Lily was only a few years old. When Arthur left Alola, Lily hadn't started school yet. This is obviously impossible. It can't be Luzaman, right? Apart from that, the only people who have been in contact with Arthur for a long time are Dew, Gary and Grandpa. Grandpa is impossible, and Gary is always under his nose, which is impossible. Maybe Gary and his girlfriends have a lot of fun, but he definitely can't teach Arthur these things. Then it seems that only Dew can do it. But how is this possible? Casey May is no stranger to Dew. Arthur thinks he is a like-minded partner. He usually looks serious and is considered the most diligent among the elites. How could he teach Arthur these things? So where did Arthur learn it from? It's getting late. Uncle is probably up and waiting for you to get up and cook. Arthur looked at the time, played with the aura sphere for a while, and whispered to Casey May. This is it. Casey May was startled, and quickly stood up, looked at Arthur with a reproachful look, then hurriedly walked out of the room with her clothes in her arms. Looking at Casey May like this, Arthur sighed helplessly. After all, he still felt a little uncomfortable staying in the laboratory. How about finding a time to ask Casey May out for a vacation? Ninetales, this feather is for you. Arthur strung Articuno's feather into a necklace and hung it around Ninetales' neck. Now it is almost impossible for Sylvian and Arcanine to break through their levels as quickly as possible in a short period of time, so Arthur also set his sights on Ninetales. All along, Arthur has been working hard to train Ninetales. The quasi-elite high-level Ninetales is also one of Arthur's hidden trump cards. After all, this Pokémon, which is relatively powerful, has hardly been used, and most people don't even know that Arthur has such a Pokémon. At a critical moment, this can save your life. This feather is. Professor Oak, who had just made tea and was ready for a day's work, was attracted by Articuno's feather at first sight. Articuno's feather. This is not very rare, right? Arthur raised his eyebrows and asked back. Articuno's feather is indeed not particularly rare, and some people do collect Articuno's feather. After all, legendary Pokémon like Articuno often fight with other Pokémon, and it is inevitable that feathers will fall. But your feather is obviously different from other feathers. Professor Oak looked at the feather on Ninetales' neck with curiosity. Chapter 42 It's all Gary's fault. Well, my feather actually contains some of Articuno's power. I hope it can help Ninetales to level up, or even surpass its limit. Arthur did not hide it from Professor Oak, stroking Ninetales' head and whispering. Is that so? No one has ever used this method before. Professor Oak nodded slightly. After all, the feather containing Articuno's power seems to have only appeared once. To train Pokémon to surpass its limit, a lot of resources are needed, and correct training is also important. You may need a lot of Nevermelt Ice and Ice Stone. Nevermelt Ice is a consumable, and Ninetales will absorb it, which will cost a lot. Professor Oak is the former champion of Kanto region and an authority in Pokémon research. At this moment, he also gave Arthur appropriate advice. Is that so? Arthur nodded thoughtfully. I hope this feather can play a role. Arthur also took out a Nevermelt Ice and handed it to Ninetales, saying, during this period of time, try to absorb the power inside. Woo-woo, *0, Ninetales picked up the Nevermelt Ice very obediently. As Arthur's trump card, Ninetales now does not want to compete with Sylveon for favor, but to consider how to improve his strength as soon as possible. The enemies Arthur will encounter in the future will become stronger and stronger. Arcanine and Eevee's strength has surpassed him. He can't fall behind. He must improve his strength as soon as possible and then escort Arthur in future battles. Come on, Ninetales. Arthur saw Ninetales like this and nodded with satisfaction. Arthur has always been very satisfied with his Ninetales. He does not fight or compete, and is very obedient. It works hard when it should. Its usual efforts are no less than those of Arcanine and Eevee. Arthur is willing to train Ninetales as a trump card, and the other party has never let him down. After giving Ninetales some instructions, Arthur came to the backyard of the laboratory. Dratini and Dragonair have come to live in the lake. Both Pokémon are very satisfied with the life in the laboratory. There are not only grasslands and lakes here, but it is said that a large area of forests behind belongs to the laboratory. Arthur told them before that here, they don't need to be as timid as in the wild wilderness area, and they don't even dare to show up. Here, they are completely provided with delicious food and drinks. When they are hungry, they can run to the house to eat food. It's so delicious that they don't want to go to the wild wilderness area in just less than a day. Even Dragonair wondered if he was stupid before and wanted to avoid being conquered by humans. If he had found an excellent trainer earlier, would he not have to starve for decades? Of course, Dragonair was just thinking about it. It also knew that many of the people who wanted to capture it were bad guys, which was nothing like Arthur. Arcanine was running in the backyard with Sylveon to warm up. Arthur's Squirtle was also leading Gary's Squirtle to practice Kamesun Ryu at this moment, but Arthur could clearly feel that his Squirtle had become more and more proficient in the use of waveguides, and even his own waveguides had been greatly improved after a few days of training. But Gary's Squirtle did not use the waveguides as well as Arthur's Squirtle. However, it didn't matter. It was always okay to try. Arthur's Aaron fell asleep happily with a special piece of metal in his arms, and licked the metal a few times in his sleep from time to time, as if he was still thinking about his food in his dream. Arthur sat on a recliner, checking the images of his Pokémon working hard to become stronger, while surfing the internet to read various news and information. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Days passed, and Duke seemed to know that Arthur was resting during this period, so he didn't come to disturb Arthur. In this way, Arthur was directly given a 10-day vacation. This was beyond Arthur's expectations. Finally, on this day, Arthur's phone was called by Dew again. Dew, what's the matter? Arthur lay on the recliner and asked Dew lazily. It's not that Arthur has fallen, but Casey's meticulous care during this period is really comfortable. Arthur, are you free recently? Dew asked. I may need your help with something here. Go ahead. Arthur said directly. After a 10-day vacation, Arthur also wanted to move his muscles. Although Casey's good conscience makes people feel comfortable, he can't always indulge in the gentleness. Our people found a small group of Rocket Team in the Evergreen Forest. I want to ask you to investigate them. After thinking about it, Du continued to add, of course, the Evergreen Forest is so huge, I just want you to investigate it. If you really can't find it, there is nothing you can do. You see that I have nothing to do recently and want to have fun for me. Arthur complained to Du speechlessly. The Evergreen Forest spans the Johto region and Kanto region, and altogether, it is nearly half of the Kanto continent. If you want me to go to the Evergreen Forest to find a few Rocket Teams, it would be better to let me go there to find a few legendary Pokemon. If you can find the legendary Pokemon, I will be happy to do it. Du smiled cheerfully, but this time, I want to invite you over. The ranger who provided the information this time has worked with me before. His niece has some problems and wants to ask Professor Oak. You are the most suitable person to be the middleman in our bureau. You think I am a P******. Arthur complained, but it's not a problem. Uncle still has time recently. Gary's EV evolved some time ago, but it evolved into the appearance of moon Pokemon, which made Professor Oak a little disappointed. At the same time, he was also angry with Gary. After all, Gary's EV also learned Baby Doll Eyes, but it didn't evolve into Sylveon in the end. Obviously, the bond between the two sides is not enough. This is all Gary's problem. Chapter 43 Xiao Huang. Although Professor Oak had said before that what EV evolved into depended on Gary and EV's own wishes. But as a professor, Professor Oak wanted EV to evolve into Sylveon under his nose. Unfortunately, Gary was not up to the task, and EV finally evolved into a moon Pokemon. However, Gary was still very satisfied with the moon Pokemon. Compared with the Sylveon used by the woman, Gary felt that the moon Pokemon was the Pokemon that men should use. So, where do you think I should go? The Viridian Forest is so big, you have to give me a general location, right? Arthur asked with a sigh. It's in the north of Tokiwa City. I'll send you their address. When Du saw Arthur agreed, he quickly said, by the way, how is your team's manpower preparation? The Rocket Team is stronger than we thought, and even the future elite has been infiltrated. Now I can only trust you, Arthur, and a few people. Your team must be formed. Aren't you afraid that the team I formed here will be infiltrated by the Rocket Team? Arthur couldn't help but complain. I am still very confident in your ability to judge people, and you won't let anyone join your team casually. Du said with full of trust, Arthur, I trust you more than I trust myself. I may misjudge people, but I believe you won't. Thank you very much. Arthur didn't know how to complain at this time. Du, this guy, really trusts himself, and, are you gay? Why do you say such words to a boy like me? I have found two people for now. One is Casey May, who will be the logistics of my team. She will help me take care of Pokemon. My Pokemon will also be taken care of and trained by Casey May in the future. Arthur did not hide it. As a police captain, I am still qualified to recruit a dedicated breeder for myself. Okay, it makes sense. Du thought about Casey May's information in his mind. It seems that she is Professor Oak's granddaughter. This is a trustworthy person, so there is no need to worry that the other party will be infiltrated by the Rocket Team. As for breeders, this is also Arthur's right. In addition, I also plan to bring Gary into my team. Although he has not traveled yet, he is still talented in trainer. Of course, the most important thing is to be trustworthy. Arthur then said with a subtle look. Okay, as long as you are happy. Du didn't know how to complain at this time. Isn't Gary the grandson of Professor Oak? Trust is okay, but is it really okay for you to turn your team into your family's team? However, I am not from Interpol, so it's okay as long as they are happy. Of course, if possible, Du would like to remind Arthur that you have tricked your granddaughter and grandson here. Why not call Professor Oak himself over as well? Professor Oak is more trustworthy than them. After chatting for a while, Du hung up the phone, which made Arthur curl his lips. Sure enough, Du was a very snobbish guy. When there was something going on, he called her little sweetie, and when there was nothing going on, he called her Mrs. Nyo. Tokiwa City is located in the north of Pallet Town. Starting from Pallet Town, Arthur only spent half an hour to get to the place Stu said. This is a small house in the suburbs of Tokiwa City. Further north is the Tokiwa Forest, which is suitable for forest rangers to live in. But before Arthur could find someone, he saw a girl wearing jeans, a straw hat, and golden hair, about 12 or 13 years old, playing with a Pikachu in the yard. "Excuse me, is this Mr. Hideki's home?" Arthur walked up, knocked on the door of the yard, and asked the girl. "Hideki? Are you looking for your uncle?" The girl looked at Arthur curiously and asked, "My uncle has gone to work. If you want to find him, you can call him." Arthur looked at the girl not far away thoughtfully. If the girl had yellow hair and a Pikachu, he quickly guessed her identity. Xiao Huang Dai Tokiwa Clove. That is the girl called Xiao Huang by many people. I didn't expect that the Hideki introduced by Watari would be Xiao Huang's uncle. After all, normal people would not remember what Xiao Huang's uncle was called. "I am Interpol Arthur, is it convenient for me to come in?" Arthur took out his ID and asked Xiao Huang. "Interpol?" Xiao Huang looked at the certificate in Arthur's hand in surprise, and quickly welcomed Arthur in. "Big brother, are you really Interpol? Why do you look so young?" "Brother, I am indeed Interpol. As for looking young, it's because I am young." Arthur chuckled, and then looked at the Pikachu held in Xiao Huang's arms. "Good guy, it is worthy of Xiao Huang's Pikachu, and it actually has the potential to be a champion." Even Arthur had an idea to intercept Xiao Huang at this moment. After all, Pokemon with championship potential will definitely make countless trainers fight for it. This Pikachu is very special and has good talent. I suggest you capture it as soon as possible. Arthur suppressed his emotions and reminded Xiao Huang. "Is Chiuchiu special?" Xiao Huang blinked his innocent big eyes and looked at Arthur with doubts. "Isn't Chiuchiu the same as other Pikachu?" "Oh, by the way, Chiuchiu is very naughty." "Well, the talent is very good. It's so good that even I would be moved. I advise you to capture it as soon as possible." Arthur said seriously, "If you let others capture it, you will regret it." "Little sister, don't you want to see this Pikachu become someone else's Pokemon?" Xiao Huang's face also showed a tangled look when she heard it. She had never thought about capturing Chiuchiu before, but just wanted to live with him. But when she thought of what the other party said, if Chiuchiu became someone else's Pokemon, she felt uncomfortable. Chapter 44 Arrangements for Xiao Huang. Huang looked at Arthur with a tangled face. "Big brother, are you poisonous?" Even Huang, who is so good-tempered, feels that Arthur seems to have a problem at this moment. "It's not poisonous, it's just a reminder for you to capture Pokemon." Many people thought that they only needed Pokemon to accompany them, but their Pokemon were defeated and captured by others. Arthur stepped forward and rubbed Huang's head and said softly, "Pokeball is not only a restraint for Pokemon, but also a protection." "Is that so?" Huang showed a thoughtful look, and his eyes looked at the Pokemon in his arms vaguely. How about waiting for his uncle to come back and asking his uncle for a Pokeball to capture Chiuchiu? "Can I still lie to you about this? What good will it do to me? My uncle is Professor Oak, how can he lie to you about this?" Arthur said, stretching his hand to Pikachu's head. "This is a Pokemon with great potential, even the dream of countless people. You must protect it well." "Huh?" Xiao Huang looked at Arthur in shock. She certainly knew who Professor Oak was. "I didn't expect that this big brother's uncle was Professor Oak. It seems that he can still listen to his words. Your Pikachu likes you very much, too. I hope you don't let it down." Arthur restrained his covetousness for Pikachu and said softly. If Pikachu was met in the wild, even Arthur would be moved by this Pikachu and want to conquer it. As for the ominousness of taming Pikachu, Arthur didn't care. Although after Ash brought Pikachu to other regions, Pikachu's level was directly reset to 0, and even Earl Dervish Pokemon could lose. But you have to admit that Pikachu did help Ash win many battles that he shouldn't have won. It brought Ash to a height that shouldn't belong to him. Although Arthur often said that he disliked Pikachu, if Arthur really had a Pikachu that was stronger when facing a strong opponent and was grinding experience all day long, Arthur would still be very happy. Pikachu. Pikachu showed a forced smile. Xiao Huang was a little fool. He had been playing with Xiao Huang for several months, and the other party didn't think about taming him. However, being with Xiao Huang really made him very happy, and he wanted to be with Xiao Huang for the rest of his life. Are there guests at home? At this time, a middle-aged uncle in his 30s, wearing the clothes of a forest ranger, walked in from the door. Seeing Arthur, he was stunned for a moment, and then said loudly, "Uncle." Seeing the man coming, Xiao Huang jumped to his side. It seemed that she was still a little wary, even though Arthur had already taken out his ID. "Du asked me to come here." Arthur took out his ID. "You are Mr. Xiao Zhe, right? Du said that you want to contact my uncle through me." "Yes." "Hello Arthur, I am Xiao Zhe." Seeing Arthur's ID, Xiao Zhe also became excited. "Thank you so much for coming here," said Xiao Zhe, pointed to Xiao Huang beside him and said, "This is my niece Xiao Huang, who gained special power some time ago. A power that can communicate with Pokemon and can also heal Pokemon. The power of Evergreen? Legend has it that it is a blessing from the Evergreen Forest. It is said that such a child will appear every 10 years. However, if we really count it, this time may exceed 10 years. Moreover, my uncle has speculated before that the so-called Evergreen power is likely to be a blessing from the forest god Shalebi. Of course, this is just speculation, without any evidence." Arthur was a little surprised by Xiao Zhe's sincerity. After knowing his identity, he directly told the matter of Xiao Huang. "Is this really good? This child is too naive. She runs into the forest from time to time to treat the injured Pokemon. She was discovered to have such ability by the Rocket Team before." Xiao Zhe quickly stated his purpose and said helplessly, "Did you catch the Rocket Team?" Arthur raised his eyebrows. "Yes, but this is not a long-term solution," Xiao Zhe said with a wry smile. "Alliance may not be able to protect Xiao Huang. So I want to entrust Xiao Huang to Professor Oak." "Uncle?" Xiao Huang looked at Xiao Zhe in disbelief. She had guessed that she might get into trouble this time, so she was very wary of Arthur. But now her uncle wants to ask her out. "Xiao Huang, be good." Seeing Xiao Huang like this, Xiao Zhe was also sad. "You can also get in touch with a lot of things when you go to Professor Oak. Don't you want to meet more friends? Take Xiao Huang to your uncle." Arthur agreed directly in his heart. According to my information, Team Rocket seems to have been looking for someone who has obtained the power of Evergreen since 3 years ago. Although I don't know what their purpose is, if the Rockets find this child, the child will be in great danger. At this point, Arthur also fell into deep thought. So why did Team Rocket look for people with the power of Evergreen? Do they want to dissect them and obtain the power of Evergreen? But such power is not something that can be obtained just by saying so. Even in history, it is not that no one has taken action against those who have obtained the power of Evergreen, but in the end they all failed. The power of Evergreen can help Xiao Huang communicate with Pokemon, which is very beneficial to research. I can convince my uncle to take Xiao Huang in. Without thinking for too long, Arthur said directly to Xiao Zhe. Although he might have to use himself and others, Arthur knew that Professor Oak would definitely agree to protect Xiao Huang after knowing this. Not to mention that Xiao Huang's affairs have not been exposed yet. Even if they were exposed, their family, at that time, did not seem to be very afraid of Team Rocket. Even if Xiao Huang did not have the ability to communicate with Pokemon, Professor Oak would protect Xiao Huang out of compassion. As for handing Xiao Huang over to Alliance for protection, Xiao Zhe gave up on this point. That guy, should also know the truth and gave up as well. But why didn't Du protect Xiao Huang himself? This made Arthur think about it. Chapter 45 Gather the protagonists as a group of followers? Really? I'm really grateful to you. Xiao Zhe also showed a happy look after hearing Arthur's words. But if that's all, you shouldn't have called me over like this, right? Then, Arthur stared at Xiao Zhe and questioned. Arthur agreed with Xiao Huang's entry into the laboratory. In the future, Arthur even wanted to pull Xiao Huang into Interpol and into his team. Maybe in Xiao Huang's own heart, she is not very good at fighting, nor does she like fighting very much, but Arthur said that they are not fighting in Interpol, but just to catch criminals and uphold justice. They do this just to help more Pokemon. As the holder of the power of Evergreen, how can Xiao Huang miss such a thing? Gary, Casey, Xiao Huang, this is also the prototype of the team that Arthur wants to form. If possible, Arthur wants to pull all the protagonists into his team. Giovanni can form Team Rainbow Rockets, why can't he Arthur form a round table meeting? Yes. Seeing Arthur's expression change, Xiao Zhe hurriedly said, before, a member of the Rocket team discovered Xiao Huang's ability and wanted to capture Xiao Huang. In order to protect Xiao Huang, I accidentally killed him. However, I roughly found this member of the Rocket team and where he came from. I guess there is a lot of Rocket hideout there. Is that so? Arthur looked at Xiao Zhe with a playful look. Accidentally was not true. I'm afraid that killing to protect Xiao Huang was true. However, Arthur would not say anything because he was just a scum of the Rocket team. He would kill him. He was not the kind of person who liked to follow the rules. I'm afraid that Du also knew about this, but he, like himself, didn't care much about the life and death of the members of the Rocket team. There was no problem at all in killing some useless wastes that had no effect on society. Okay, tell me where Team Rocket's base might be. Then, Arthur waved his hand and said, I'm not interested in the twists and turns. I can take this matter for you. Xiao Huang is also very interesting and promising. The power of Evergreen has never been used only to communicate with Pokemon and treat Pokemon, but it can also play a huge role in battle. I want to train her to be a qualified Interpol. Interpol? Xiao Huang was a little confused. What about herself? She doesn't look like someone who is suitable to be an Interpol, right? Her uncle is a forest ranger, and he is also a member of an official organization. Although he is only at the bottom, he is also a real civil servant. She had thought about becoming a forest ranger like her uncle before, but she didn't expect that someone would train her to be an Interpol. Yes, Interpol, there are too many criminals in this world. Poachers and Pokemon hunters are endless. Rangers can only guard a small area. You have the ability to protect more Pokemon and catch more criminals. Why do you stay in such a small area? Arthur asked Xiao Huang. This. Xiao Huang hesitated when asked by Arthur. It seemed that what Arthur said made sense. Although she was well protected, Xiao Huang was not a child who knew nothing. Following her uncle who was a forest ranger, Xiao Huang knew a lot of things. If she was asked to go around the world to deal with criminals and people who hurt Pokemon, Xiao Huang really couldn't refuse such a thing. Maybe she wouldn't take the initiative to fight crime, but if she knew that some people hurt Pokemon, she couldn't sit idly by. Otherwise, Xiao Huang wouldn't be able to get this power. Her love for Pokemon was recognized by the world. Of course, if Xiao Huang doesn't want to join, I am willing to bring her to the laboratory. She is still a child now. It is too early to decide your future life so quickly. Arthur looked at Xiao Zhe again and said, of course, protecting Xiao Huang also requires a certain price. I know this, and if Xiao Huang can really join Professor Oak's laboratory, it will definitely be a good thing for this child. Xiao Zhe said quickly, this is because countless researchers want to join Professor Oak's laboratory. If Xiao Huang can join, it will definitely be a good thing for Xiao Huang. Well, then tell me where the Rocket team may be hiding. Arthur thought about more things at this time, that is, this is near the city of Changpan. If the Rocket team is attacked here, will that adult come out? He is not the rival of that adult now. Moreover, if there is really a base of the Rocket team here, it will probably be a relatively large base of the Rocket team. This is not something that he can attack alone. How to attack and how many people to arrange for the attack are all problems. I'll take you there. Xiao Zhe heard Arthur mention the business, and hurriedly said, because there may be Rocket hideout there, I dare not get too close, I can only patrol like usual. No, you'd better not go there. Arthur shook his head repeatedly, and solemnly told Xiao Zhe, after telling me the location, you have nothing to do with this matter, understand? Remember to remove yourself from this matter. Even in the Forest Rangers organization, you can't tell the truth. I understand. Xiao Zhe is an official member of the Alliance after all, and he understood Arthur's intention in an instant. This is not to compete with him for the credit, but to protect himself. This credit is not easy to get, and it is very hot. Xiao Zhe also knows the power of the rocket team. If they really built a huge base in the Evergreen Forest, would other people really not know? The interest group behind it is huge, and he can't touch it. At that time, the people above can just move their fingers and their family will be finished. Well, you don't need to worry about the benefits. If there is a chance in the future, we will make it up to you, but not now. Arthur patted Xiao Zhe's shoulder. D. Chapter 46, I asked Giovanni to deal with Team Rocket. It should be around here. Arthur followed the location given by Xiao Zhe and came to a big tree. He emitted his own waveguide to sense the surrounding atmosphere. However, the reason why Xiao Zhe was able to find the trace of Team Rocket may be due to Xiao Huang's contribution. Xiao Huang can know a lot of information through Pokemon, which is one of the main reasons why Arthur wants to pull Xiao Huang into Interpol. Waveguide can also allow Arthur to communicate with some Pokemon without obstacles, but Xiao Huang can communicate with almost all Pokemon. So Arthur himself still trusts the clues they give. Waveguides are constantly expanding, and there is no need to distinguish all waveguides very clearly, but Arthur can still distinguish between human waveguides and Pokemon waveguides, and that kind of rough scan does not consume much for Arthur. However, at this time, Arthur is very curious. Waveguides can do such a thing, so what about Psychic? Although a normal Psychic cannot cultivate a single skill even after practicing for a lifetime, some Psychics are gifted, such as Sabrina and Catlia. If we only judge the strength of Psychic, Catlia is even better than Sabrina, but Catlia's Psychic cannot be controlled. Sometimes, uncontrollable power is not necessarily a good thing. But Sabrina can already control her own Psychic, which is incomparable to Catlia. The power of wave guidance also attaches great importance to talent, and the same is true for cultivating to become a strong person. Sometimes, Arthur is also very envious of Ash, who relied on the resurrection coins given by Ho-Oh to directly obtain a body comparable to the 3 sacred beasts, so that Ash has the qualifications to roam around in high-end games. Even when facing a first-level god, or even the creator Arceus, Ash dares to attack directly. If this is an indiscriminate battle, there are probably not many people in the entire Pokemon who can fight against Ash. Why do we need to wait until Alola region to become the champion? In Johto region, Ash could have become the champion. Oh, by the way, Charizard seems to have started to listen to Ash after he became a god. It seems that Charizard may have discovered Ash's changes and was worried that he would not be able to beat Ash in the future, so he surrendered to Ash. Of course, it may also be the changes brought by Pikachu to Ash. After all, lightning forging is not something that any human can do. Because of Psychic Pokemon, organizations such as Alliance and Team Rocket actually have some means against Psychic. So what about the power of Wave? Do they have means against Wave? Even Arthur couldn't help looking forward to it at this time. If there is no trace within 100 meters, then 200 meters, 300 meters. Arthur found that as long as he released his wave power, as long as he did not specifically identify what these waves were, and just searched roughly, then such a search would not consume as much as he imagined. Soon, Arthur explored the area within 1,000 meters. At this time, even Arthur felt a little tired. Isn't the rocket's base here? Or do they have means to target the waves? Arthur frowned, then shook his head and said, no, there must be rocket hideout nearby. Forget it, let's continue to expand the range. Others don't know the identity of the rocket team's boss, so how could Arthur not know? Viridian City is also the rocket team's base. It's impossible that Giovanni really arranged the rocket team's base under the Viridian Gym, right? Hiss, it seems that there is a certain possibility. Of course, Arthur is more optimistic that there is actually a rocket team base in the Viridian Forest. And there should be one under Viridian City, but there should not be many people who know the Viridian Gym. Giovanni can't tell his secret to so many people. Although Jesse James and others have always known Giovanni's identity, there should not be many people in the Rocket team who know Giovanni's true identity. They are just a little special. Found it. Suddenly Arthur's mind condensed, and he found a place where a large number of humans gathered through the waveguide. As expected, the Rocket team has a large base in the Viridian Forest. What to do? Should I take action? Take action, I must take action. For me, this is a good opportunity to brush up the lottery points. The only thing he had to worry about was whether Giovanni would become desperate and regard him as a major threat. After some consideration, Arthur called Du. After the call was connected, he complained directly, You really think I am living too comfortably, so you are causing trouble for me. How is it? Is there a big fish? Du asked expectantly. There are big fish, but I can't eat them. Arthur rubbed his temple helplessly and said, There are at least hundreds of people in this base, and it is hard to guarantee whether there are strong people in it. This is easy. I will come out of Indigo Plateau now and reach you in 10 minutes at most. Bruno has been communicating with Giovanni in Tokiwa City during this period. If necessary, call both of them. I don't think Team Rocket can escape under such circumstances. Du's tone was full of confidence. This made Arthur panic for a while, and he called Giovanni as well. Du, you don't set flags so randomly. Giovanni is the boss of Team Rocket. However, Arthur was also looking forward to meeting Giovanni at this time. If that's the case, you come to my place first, and when you arrive, we can contact Bruno, how about that? After a moment of silence, Arthur suggested to Du. Are you doubting Giovanni? Du quickly understood Arthur's intention and asked hurriedly. I don't trust any gym leader in the Kanto region now. After all, we can almost guess what Koga is like. Arthur said with a wry smile, As for other gym leaders, I haven't seen them, how can I trust them? And, at this time, I actually want to keep a low profile. D. Chapter 47 Giovanni, those bastards on Team Rocket are going too far. Du is Arthur's best partner. He soon understood Arthur's hidden meaning. Are you worried about Team Rocket's revenge? Don't I need to worry? Arthur asked in a speechless voice. He had just gone to test Koga, and Sabrina came to him. Arthur felt that he must have been noticed by Team Rocket. He just hoped that he would not become a thorn in the eyes of the other party. He still needed time to develop. At least he had to wait for a month until Aunt Luzamin came to Kanto region and went back. Arthur had a hunch that the entire Kanto region might be in chaos by then. Is that so? Du also understood Arthur's worries. Although Arthur also had a few Pokemon of decent levels, his advantage was in his ability to solve cases, not in fighting. Although Arthur's strength was good, it was not impossible to find someone to replace Arthur within the alliance. But Arthur's ability to solve cases, in Du's opinion, was their trump card and core against Team Rocket's united team. If Arthur wasn't there, Du himself wouldn't be optimistic about the team's results. In terms of solving cases, Yulong Du, is willing to call Arthur the strongest. However, you don't have to participate in this matter, just tell me the location, and Bruno and I will go to deal with Team Rocket together? Du asked Arthur after a moment of silence. Do you think I should give up at this time? Arthur asked back speechlessly, however, for the time being, this matter is that you found the clues and called me to the Evergreen Forest. I still need you to be a cover for me for a while. Is that so? I don't mind. If Team Rocket takes the initiative to target me, I would even be happy. Du smiled confidently when he heard this. Du is still very confident in his own strength. With the formation of his main lineup, Du has rarely encountered rival who can fight. If Lorelei hadn't been stuck in the position, he might have become the champion of Kanto. Okay, come over now. In the Viridian City Gym, Giovanni is currently commanding a Rhydon to fight Bruno's Onix. This is already the third battle of the day. It is difficult for Giovanni to control his Pokemon and fight the opponent on equal terms. However, Giovanni still admires Bruno very much. Bruno is a very pure trainer, and he doesn't have much scheming, but he can get along with him. Since the two met 3 years ago, Bruno has come to Viridian City from time to spar with him. Giovanni has also become accustomed to contact with Bruno. I don't know how long it has been, but Rhydon finally lost his ability to fight under the attack of Onyx. Giovanni put Rhydon into the Pokeball and handed it to the staff around him. After arranging them to treat the Pokémon, he said to Bruno, "It seems that your Onyx has made some progress recently." "Well, but I still feel like something is missing." Bruno frowned. He was sure that Onyx's strength should have improved, but the difficulty of defeating Rhydon was still the same as before. It seemed that Giovanni's Rhydon was also improved from Onyx normal. I always felt that there was something wrong. However, soon, he stopped thinking about these things. After all, how could Giovanni, who could write the secrets of the earth, have any problems? At this moment, Bruno's cell phone rang. He glanced at the number on it and answered the call. Soon, his expression became solemn. After he hung up the phone, Giovanni asked calmly, "It seems that you have something to deal with." "Yes, it's a call from that guy Du. Giovanni, this time, we need your help." Bruno pleaded to Giovanni with a serious look, "We found a base of the Rocket Team and need to deal with the base, but in order to prevent spies from leaking the news, we are a little short of manpower. Now we need your help." "The Rocket Team's base?" Giovanni's expression couldn't help but become subtle. "You ask me, the boss of the Rocket Team, to deal with the Rocket Team's base. Is this really okay? However, who are the guys who are so brainless that they don't know who was found by the Alliance? In the end, I knew about this earlier than those guys. Is it convenient for me to notify the base at this time? Unless he chooses to expose his identity directly and attack Bruno directly at this time, otherwise he seems to have no way at all. Even if the Alliance's plan fails at this time, it is very likely that they will suspect me." Thinking of this, Giovanni's face also became gloomy. Damn, the guys under him are too useless. It's hard for me to be the boss. Yes, it's not far from Viridian City, so Du called me over to help. This time, with Du, Giovanni, and me, we will definitely make it difficult for them to escape. Bruno's face also showed a confident look. Yes, those bastards of Team Rocket dared to build a base under my nose. They simply don't take me seriously. Giovanni's face was ashen and his tone was extremely cold. Giovanni, you don't need to be so angry. Team Rocket has grown under the eyes of Alliance in recent years. We suspect that not only Viridian City has a base for Team Rocket, but other major cities in the Kanto region also have bases for Team Rocket. Bruno thought Giovanni was annoyed that Team Rocket was taunting him, and he also hurriedly comforted him. "This." Giovanni widened his eyes. "What are you doing?" Giovanni was helpless now. If he had known that Koga's attack on Komuro and his team would make Alliance so afraid of Team Rocket, he might have used another method to deal with Komuro, such as secretly knocking him out. Let the other party disappear without anyone noticing, unlike now when Alliance is afraid of Team Rocket. Team Rocket cannot confront Alliance head-on, but as long as that Pokémon is created, the Alliance is nothing. Let's go, I want to see what Team Rocket can do to make trouble in Viridian City. Soon, Giovanni calmed down and said to Bruno in a deep voice. Chapter 48, Fairy, Bruno, Giovanni. Bruno and Giovanni were very fast. When they arrived, Arthur and his men had just finished exploring the area. "Bruno, Giovanni, you are here." Du greeted them when he saw the two of them. "Hello, Du Elite." Giovanni couldn't help but feel a sinking feeling in his heart when he saw Arthur and Du, as well as their location. Sure enough, Du was here. Of course, Giovanni was most concerned about Arthur. He had been paying attention to Arthur during this period of time. He had been thinking about finding an opportunity to meet Arthur, but he didn't expect to meet Arthur at this time. Was this base also investigated by Arthur this time? However, with a lineup like Du, Bruno, and Arthur, unless he defected at this time, this base could not be saved at all. But could he defect? For the sake of this base, it was not worth exposing his public identity. At most, he could just let him go. This must be Inspector Arthur. I have heard of your name for a long time. Then, Giovanni greeted Arthur again. Hello, Gym Leader Giovanni, I have admired you for a long time. When I was very young, I had already read your Secrets of the Earth. You are a respectable person who can spread your method of cultivating Pokemon without reservation. Arthur's heart trembled, but on the surface he still said with great admiration. You have heard of me for a long time? I don't want it. Sure enough, these guys from Team Rocket have already set their sights on me. This is not a good thing. It seems that I have been too jumpy recently. However, putting aside the fact that Giovanni is the boss of Team Rocket, if it is Giovanni as a trainer of the Tokiwa City Gym, then this person is indeed worthy of respect. Just like Bruno and Du now, they also have a little respect for Giovanni. It's not just a matter of strength, but respect and Giovanni's character. No, I just published some shallow experiences. It's just that some things can't be spread by solation, and it's too difficult to spread all your ideas. Besides, who can compare with Professor Oak in popularizing knowledge of Pokemon? Giovanni shook his head slightly and said, however, I heard that Arthur is a master in solving cases and finding clues. I want to ask Arthur to find someone for me privately. This is also a problem that has troubled me for more than 10 years. Find someone? Arthur raised his eyebrows, and his expression was a little subtle. Could this guy Giovanni want to help find Silver himself? It seems that many of the things Giovanni did were just to find his son, whether it was Mutuo or Deoxys, it seemed to be the same. But now doesn't seem to be the right time. Giovanni suppressed the sadness in his eyes and said to Watari and Bruno, two elites, as the head of the Viridian Gym, it is my duty to fight Team Rocket in Viridian City. It's just that my two main Pokemon were seriously injured in the previous battle with Bruno. The number of Pokemon I can use next is limited. Please help me. Giovanni knew that this base could not be saved, but some people inside could be saved. Even if it could not be saved, as long as these people entered the Alliance, he would have the means to release them. Of course, such means can only be used on 1 or 2 people. And this base, it is obvious that it cannot be saved. Du looked at Bruno for advice, and Bruno nodded slightly. Giovanni's strength is definitely one of the best in Kanto, and I also like to fight with Giovanni. However, most of his Pokemon are between quasi-elite and elite. Du also understood after hearing this. No wonder Bruno likes to fight with Giovanni. This is because he has a few elite Pokemon. Moreover, Giovanni seems to be very good at using ground Pokemon. It seems understandable that Bruno likes to find Giovanni. But Arthur looked subtle. Most of Giovanni's Pokemon were between quasi-elite and elite. This was true. After all, those Pokemon were only Giovanni's first and second teams. If there was a real ranking of 8 masters in this world, Giovanni would definitely be among the top. As for whether Du could be ranked, Arthur didn't know. In other words, in Arthur's opinion, Giovanni's strength was actually superior to Du and Bruno. As a result, this gym owner had to show a weaker side in front of Bruno. This disguise was really enough. Is that so? Du didn't know Giovanni's background, but still said, in that case, Giovanni, you and Arthur will cooperate to protect the other exits in the base for us, and Bruno and I will be responsible for the main attack. How about it? Okay. Giovanni didn't refuse after hearing this. This was all he could do. As for whether Serd could escape, it depended on Serd's life. If it really came to a last resort, he could even get rid of Serd himself. Arthur looked at Giovanni thoughtfully, then chuckled. Rock's weight is reassuring. It is really my honor to fight side by side with a childhood idol like Mr. Giovanni. I am also looking forward to working with you, Arthur. I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation. Giovanni said with a smile on his serious old face. He really wanted to remind Arthur that he was actually a gym trainer of the ground system, not the rock system. However, rock and ground are basically inseparable, and Giovanni was too lazy to make jokes. At the same time, Giovanni's heart was also full of rage. Are Serd and other guys all useless? Arthur and Du have been hanging around the gate of the base for so long, but they didn't move at all. Are they just eating for free? Or is it because this is Chongpan City, and the Alliance people can't search here, so they are lazy? Giovan squinted his eyes. He felt that he needed to knock on the top management of the Rocket team later. The more so at this time, the more vigilant they need to be. If they are not careful, the rocket team is likely to capsize in the ditch. Du and Bruno looked at each other, and then Bruno released an onyx and commanded, "Onyx, dig a hole." Chapter 49 Surd, what does this mean, boss? Well, Mr. Giovanni, I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation this time. Seeing Bruno start to act, Arthur looked at Giovanni meaningfully and went to the direction he needed to guard. This kid. Looking at Arthur's leaving figure, Giovanni also narrowed his eyes. Did he find something? Or is this just an exception? However, I still hope that you can guess my identity. Giovanni thought he was hiding well. If Arthur could really guess his true identity, then Arthur's ability to solve the case might really help him solve the problem. Come out. Arcanine. Arthur came to his place and let Arcanine out. Woof. After Arcanine came out, he glanced around and then stared at the entrance not far away. Obviously, Arcanine also found the entrance to Rocket Hideout. It seems that Arcanine is still very talented in this area. Hearing the noise from afar, Arthur thought for a moment, glanced at Giovanni's figure not far away, and chuckled, "Arcanine, let's go, use flamethrower. Burn this place." When dealing with Team Rocket, Arthur would not hold back at all. Kindness to the enemy is cruelty to oneself. Especially when dealing with those vicious enemies, you must not hold back, which is also the experience of being Interpol for more than a year. In front of Giovanni, killing his men, not to mention, this seems to be very exciting. Woof. The temperature of Arcanine's flame now is not comparable to that of ordinary Arcanine. Under the scorching high temperature, the gate made of special metal began to melt gradually. Not bad. It's a pity that my ground Pokemon has not been cultivated yet, otherwise, I can show the mystery of the earth in front of Giovanni. Arthur saw this scene and nodded with satisfaction. Because of the blue flare, the flame temperature of Arcanine is now at least 500 degrees Celsius higher than that of ordinary Arcanine. Don't underestimate this 500 degrees Celsius, it is a great bonus to the flame. Arthur even has the confidence to let his Arcanine fight against other champion-level Arcanine. It would be great if Arcanine could learn Earthquake. Oh, by the way, Arcanine seems to be able to learn a skill called Scorching Sands. After returning, I will find a tutorial and let Arcanine learn it. Has Arthur started to act? Giovanni felt the situation on Arthur's side from a distance. After thinking for a moment, he also started his own action. He released a Nidoking and said in a cold tone, "Earthquake." At this moment, Giovanni was extremely rage. As the leader of Team Rocket, he actually had to work with the Alliance to eliminate his subordinates. Who knows this feeling? He has never been so frustrated in his life. At the same time, I am also very annoyed with the members of this base. How on earth were these bastards discovered? Moreover, until now, you haven't even put up a proper resistance. Are you all useless? Boom! As Nidoking's earthquake erupted, the ground not far from Giovanni began to tremble wildly, and the originally closed door collapsed. It seems that Mr. Giovanni's Pokemon is also at the elite level. Du has been paying attention to the situation around him. After feeling the strength of Nidoking's earthquake, he also sighed to Bruno. Yeah, it's a pity that he doesn't have 6 elite-level Pokemon, otherwise he would not be unqualified to challenge the Elite Four. Bruno nodded slightly, however, the base we found this time is obviously a big fish. I just don't know who is the person in charge of this base. Yeah. Du's expression was solemn. Du was still very afraid of the Rocket team's top executives. Although he thought he was already a strong man, there were only a handful of trainers in the Kanto region who could fight with him. But the Rocket team could even recruit Koga, so how many strong people did their top executives have? But Team Rocket should have been prepared. Bruno then said, "If you hadn't brought Kingdra with you, those naughty kids would have been enough to give us a hard time." This is very important when dealing with Team Rocket. Du looked at his Kingdra with the moisture ability. The other party was not his main Pokemon. The level was not high. After more than a year of training, it had barely reached the quasi-elite level. It would be difficult to reach the elite level later. But when dealing with Team Rocket, it was very useful. But how do you know that Kingdra can restrain the self-destruct of these naughty kids? Bruno asked curiously. But this time, Du didn't answer Bruno. Can he say that this is because he listened to Arthur's advice? This is about Arthur's secret. Du will not tell others, even if the other party is Bruno, and they are now in the base of Team Rocket. There is no guarantee that there are no monitoring devices here. There are not many Kingdras with the moisture ability. Seeing that Du didn't say anything, Bruno didn't say much either. Instead, he commanded the Pokémon to attack the inside of the base. The traps specially prepared by Team Rocket were all crossed by Onix one by one, and it seemed that they were not affected by these traps at all. Du, on the other hand, commanded Dragonite to destroy the facilities in the base in a few seconds. If there were members of Team Rocket who wanted to stop them, they would be easily solved. In the center of Rocket Hideout, Surd was in a bad mood at the moment. His base was actually attacked by someone, and the other party even had the boss Giovanni. Surd felt that the whole world seemed to be joking with him. The boss of Team Rocket actually joined forces with the lackeys of Alliance to attack Rocket Hideout. If this matter was spread out, I'm afraid no one would believe it. But why didn't he get the news of this matter before? Could it be that Giovanni already knew his identity as an undercover agent? Could it be that the other party was not afraid that he would be killed and said that Giovanni was the leader of Team Rocket? Chapter 50 Battle of Wits and Courage with Surd. Not right. Surd soon found the point. If he said at this time that Giovanni was the boss of Team Rocket, Du and others would not believe his words and would only think that he was framing others. Giovanni was the pride of the civilian trainer, and he was the notorious Team Rocket. Who should he believe? Isn't it obvious? Du was more difficult than the rumors said. He actually carried Kingdra, which was specially used for the self-destruct tactics of Team Rocket. At first, Surd couldn't figure out why those naughty kids couldn't self-destruct. He only guessed it after temporarily looking up the relevant information. In the future, Du will definitely become a big worry for Team Rocket. Of course, for Surd himself, this is not so important. Now he has to consider how powerful he should be. It is almost impossible to leave Du and Bruno. Unless his strength reaches Giovanni's level, it is almost impossible for him to fight against two elites alone. It is possible to leave Giovanni. Giovanni should not kill him. This may just be an accident. But if he leaves Giovanni, it may cause trouble for Giovanni. He will be an undercover agent in Team Rocket later, and he cannot let himself lose face in front of Giovanni, so at this time, he chooses to leave Arthur's side. Surd took a deep breath, hoping that Arthur only has two strong Pokémon, Arcanine and Sylveon. Are you planning to break out from my side? Arthur has been feeling the wave guide in the base, and when he feels a wave guide coming towards him, he reacts quickly. Arthur throws two Pokeballs, Dragonair, Pidgeot. He gestured to Pidgeot, and Pidgeot understood and went into the woods to act as Voldemort. When Arthur was still weak, they often dealt with poachers in this way. Dragonair, use Sunny Day. Arthur then arranged Dragonair as an open target. If the opponent appears at this time, he will think that Arcanine is the first line of defense, Dragonair is the existence that blocks soaring in the sky, and Pidgeot may be ignored by the opponent. It depends on whether the opponent will fall for it. With the soft hum of Dragonair, the sun in the originally clear soaring in the sky became even hotter. As expected of Dragonair, even if the level is not high and it has not been trained much, it is also very good at controlling the weather. This racial talent is really hard for other Pokémon to learn. Sylveon, protect Dragonair. Then Arthur told Sylveon on the side again. Bui-oh, greater than over equal to less than over equal to, oh, Sylveon looked at the passage with burning eyes. If possible, he also wanted to do a lot of work here. If you want, you can give the opponent a Moonblast. Arthur touched Sylveon's head and said softly. By, greater than over equal to less than over equal to, Sylveon focused on the passage, the shadow of the moon appeared behind him, and a purple-pink energy ball gathered in his mouth. Meow. Just as Sylveon was preparing to Moonblast, a big cat rushed out of the passage, as if trying to catch Arcanine off guard. However, Arcanine had already prepared for it, and when he saw the Persian rushing towards him, he directly used the flame wheel to meet the Persian. Is it the same Persian as Giovanni? Arthur was also shocked when he saw this Pokémon coming out. It turned out to be a Persian, and it was an elite mid-level Persian. He had never seen other Persians so powerful before. He seemed to only know that Giovanni had such a Persian. Could this Persian belong to Giovanni? You must be careful. Arthur, who had always used information gaps to trick others, also stumbled on the information gap at this time. There was no way. Who made him unfamiliar with Surd? Persian and Arcanine soon started to wrestle. Suddenly, Arthur felt a sense of crisis coming from a distance. Arthur's mind was startled, and he quickly said to Sylveon beside him, "Sylveon, aim over there and use Moonblast." As he said that, Arthur resonated his wave guide with Sylveon. Compared with the visible enhancement of psychic Pokémon, the power of wave guidance does not seem to be as powerful as psychic. But Arthur knew that the wave guidance still greatly enhanced his own physical fitness. At least his current physical fitness has already surpassed ordinary humans and become a real mega true rookie. Arthur believes that in the future, his physical fitness will become better and better. Moreover, he can also command his Pokémon to fight by resonating with the wave guidance of Pokémon. Under the blessing of Arthur's wave guidance, Sylveon also clearly felt that a Pokémon was lurking and preparing to attack Arcanine in secret. At the moment, without hesitation, he spit out the long-prepared Moonblast at the opponent. The opponent obviously did not expect that Sylveon could actually detect the existence of the opponent in such a situation. Before he could react, he was directly hit by Moonblast. And Arthur saw the identity of the opponent clearly. It was actually a Starmie. This is still an elite beginner Starmie. When did Starmie become invisible? This was obviously beyond Arthur's knowledge. At the same time, Arthur began to doubt reality. Why did another elite-level Pokémon appear? You know, when I was in the Hoenn region, I had not seen many elite-level Pokémon. As a result, I saw two today when I just went against Team Rocket. Sure enough, Team Rocket and other criminal organizations are not at the same level, right? No wonder Giovanni has the confidence to create Team Rainbow Rockets in the future. Compared with Team Rocket, other dark forces are indeed one level lower. Chapter 51 Team Rocket is too despicable. Sylveon, go and finish him off. Arthur said softly to Sylveon without hesitation. Since his own Sylveon was so eager to fight, Arthur would not stop Sylveon. In previous battles, Eevee could not participate in many battles because it had not evolved. Although Arthur knew that Eevee wanted to fight, he did not give Eevee a chance. Now that a rivalry of equal strength had finally appeared, Arthur did not intend to stop Sylveon. Sylveon, who was eager to try, was also looking forward to it, and then looked at Arthur worriedly. Once he left Arthur, who would protect Arthur's safety? It was true that it wanted to fight to show its presence, but it cared more about Arthur's safety. Don't worry, I'm still prepared. Arthur rubbed Sylveon's head and said softly. Boy. Sylveon also thought of the sister who could hide better than herself at this time. If it was it should be able to protect Arthur. Sylveon quickly rushed forward and started a melee with Starmie, and at this time, Arthur finally knew the true identity of the enemy he was facing. This was a woman who looked about 30 years old and had a very mean look. This person seemed to be the legendary Mega Traitor Surd, a spy lurking in Team Rocket from Team Galactic. I didn't expect that I would actually meet this traitor. In this case, it seems that I have to let Surd go. Letting Surd go will bring Arthur much better benefits than keeping Surd. If I use some means to tell the people of Team Rocket that Surd is actually a member of Team Galactic, will the two fight at that time? I didn't expect to see Surd, one of the 3 beast warriors of Team Rocket, here. Arthur said coolly with one hand in his trouser pocket. It seems that you know a lot of information. Surd narrowed his eyes. Although the existence of the 3 beast warriors is not a secret, there are not many people in Team Rocket who can recognize them. I know much more than you think. Arthur smiled confidently, but since you are here, don't even think about running away. Heh, just you. Surd snorted lightly, but his eyes were extremely gloomy. The opponent's Arcanine was still suppressing his Persian, and his Starmie's previous sneak attack also failed. Now he is fighting with Sylvian. Fortunately, the opponent's Dragonair used to create weather is not strong enough, otherwise, he might be in real danger this time. Looking at Arthur, who was not protected by Pokemon in front of him, Surd was tangled in his heart, whether to sneak attack this kid to let him know that humans are extremely fragile. But seeing the other party's half-smile, Surd gave up the idea. The other party could crack Starmie's sneak attack. At this time, it was hard to guarantee that there were no other preparations. Moreover, Dew and Bruno were still nearby. If he was dragged, it would be really dangerous. Weezing, smokescreen. A lot of smoke spewed out of the mouth of Weezing behind Surd. Seeing this, Arthur became more vigilant and used Waveguide to lock Surd at all times. At the same time, he also released Ninetales to prevent the other party from attacking him at this time. Fearow, destroy the Death Ray. Surd's next words made Arthur even more nervous, and he quickly led Ninetales to change his direction. Just when he was about to let Ninetales sneak attack Surd, Arthur couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Where is the destruction of the Death Ray? Surd directly put Persian and Starmie into the Pokeball, and then sat on Fearow's body and flew towards Soaring in the sky. Is he running away? But I won't take advantage so easily. Arthur sneered and commanded with the Waveguide. Hee, although he is very talented, he is still a kid after all. Surd fled on Fearow's back, and couldn't help but utter a sneer. But before she finished speaking, Surd felt something was wrong. A Pidgeot came out of the woods and flew towards her position at a very fast speed. Surd's pupils couldn't help but shrink, and many details instantly came to her mind. Both Arcanine and Sylvian seemed to want to fight with me on land in the previous battle. Soaring in the Sky has Dragonair air control, but Arthur's Dragonair is indeed a little weak. Arthur's behavior made me mistakenly think that Soaring in the Sky is Arthur's weak point, so that I can escape from the air. But in fact, Soaring in the Sky is just a trap. Flying away is indeed the most suitable way, but it is also very dangerous. She needs to rely on Pokemon for her life, and the tactics she can use will also be rapidly reduced. I was fooled, the despicable Interpol. No, run faster. Surd hurriedly commanded Fearow to fly faster, and at the same time he was ready to be attacked by Pidgeot. Sure enough, in an accelerated sprint, Pidgeot quickly caught up with Fearow and rushed towards Surd. Surd quickly blocked with his arm, and heard a snapping sound, which was the sound of Surd's broken bones. Run! However, facing the attack of Pidgeot, Surd just groaned and continued to speak coldly to Fearow. At this time, she was not afraid of Pidgeot. If it was just Pidgeot, she was still confident that she could deal with it after spending some time. At least this Pidgeot's level should not be as good as Fearow. But the opponent still has a Dew. If he is caught up by Dew's Dragonite, he really can't run away. Fortunately, Pidgeot saw that the attack was successful and seemed to be worried about Arthur's condition. He did not continue to chase, but flew to Arthur's position, flapping his wings continuously to blow away the thick fog. At this time, Surd had already flown far away. Huff, huh. Arthur panted heavily. These rocket teams were really despicable. They used smokescreen at every turn. It was really despicable. Arthur, are you okay? At this time, Giovanni hurried over and asked with concern. Chapter 52 How to Evolve. Mr. Giovanni, I'm sorry, Surd ran away. Arthur said with guilt. I should be the one to say sorry. I found the person in charge coming to you, so I came here as soon as possible. It's a pity that I didn't bring flying Pokemon. Giovanni said with embarrassment. No problem. If you were here, I wouldn't be able to do it. Anyway, I don't dare to do it to the members of the Rocket Team in front of the Rocket Team's boss. It's a pity. If we can catch the other party, maybe we can get more clues. Arthur sighed and said in annoyance. The other party should not be able to catch up, and I don't know how many clues there are in the base. Giovanni didn't feel anything in his heart. The Rocket Team's base was destroyed, which was within Giovanni's acceptable range. After all, this is just one of many bases. Surd ran away, so it's nothing. Well, let's go into the base and see if there are any other clues. Arthur nodded slightly, put Pidgeot, Dragonair and Ninetales into the Pokeball, and said to Giovanni. Okay, I also want to see what those bastards of Team Rocket have done under my nose. Giovanni said in a deep voice with a sullen face. When Arthur and Giovanni entered the base, the battle in the base was almost over. One by one, the members of Team Rocket were tied up by Dew and others and could not move. Arthur, Gym Master Giovanni, you are down. It seems that someone escaped from other directions before. Did you catch them? Dew saw the two people coming down and asked hurriedly. There were a few people on my side, but I dealt with them all. But Arthur sighed. Giovanni looked in the direction of Arthur and seemed to be hesitant to speak. The other party was Serd, one of the 3 beast warriors, and she ran away. Arthur said apologetically, but I also broke a few of her ribs. Is that so? That's a pity. Dew also showed a regretful look when he heard this. If we can catch one of the 3 beast warriors, we can definitely find out many secrets, and even know the identity of the leader of Team Rocket. Sorry, I'm not strong enough. Arthur said apologetically. It's not your fault, it's also my problem. If I arranged a Dragonite to assist you, the situation would not be like this. Dew waved his hand and comforted, however, that Serd can escape from your hands, and her strength may be beyond our expectations. At least 3 elite-level Pokemon, I suspect the number may be more. Arthur thought of the elite beginner Fearow and said in a deep voice. Is that so? This is understandable. Even if it's an elite, if the other party wants to escape, they will probably get away. Dew heard this and directly revealed the matter. Then he said, Arthur, you are good at finding clues. Come and see what clues are there in this base, although some key clues may have been destroyed. Yeah. Arthur nodded slightly. Generally speaking, this Rocket Team base is still relatively normal. There are no creepy human experiments. There are only some poached Pokemon, looking at them outside the cage with vigilance. Some of these Pokemon are indeed precious, but there is no Pokemon that makes Arthur's eyes light up. In addition, computers and other things were all destroyed before. If you want to find clues, at least Arthur himself can't do it. Sorry, Serd really destroyed this place very cleanly, and there is not much information left. Arthur paused and continued, however, at least 90% of the Pokemon here are Psychic type, or can master Psychic skills, which are considered to be Pokemon that are relatively good at Psychic. After speaking, Arthur pointed to a few cages and said, Psyduck is actually a Pokemon that is very good at Psychic, and this Execute, they are also relatively good Psychic Pokemon. I suspect that Team Rocket may need these Psychic Pokemon to do something. Giovanni's heart sank when he heard Arthur's analysis. He looked at Arthur deeply, but did not say much, just watched the development of things silently. Arthur, what you said makes sense. I will write this analysis into the report later. Dew nodded thoughtfully, then he looked at Giovanni beside him and said sincerely, Mr. Giovanni, I am really grateful to you this time. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been able to break through a base of the Rockets so easily. No, it's your credit. I just did some insignificant things. Moreover, the Rockets developed such a base under my nose, and I can't escape the blame. Giovanni said hurriedly. Ding, congratulations to the host for destroying an important base of the Rockets, and reward 7 lottery opportunities. 7 lottery opportunities? Arthur sighed silently. The Rockets are worthy of being his cash machine. It seems that he still needs to strike more against the Rockets in the future. Boss Giovanni, don't worry, I will treat you Rockets well. Let's draw the lottery. Arthur muttered silently in his heart. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining Kudo Shinichi's reasoning ability, a high-quality Ice Stone, a Tyranitar Mega Evolution Stone, a Tansama Pokemon Egg, Elite Potential, a Ponyta Pokemon Egg, Elite Potential, a high-quality Thunder Stone, and a Helix Fossil. Hearing the system voice in his mind, Arthur couldn't help but twitch his mouth. It seems that there are indeed a lot of good things. Ponyta and Tansama's Pokemon eggs are quite good. After all, these are all Elite Potential Pokemon, which are rare outside. Especially Tansama, Arthur remembers that this seems to be a Pokemon from the Paidia region, with 2 evolutionary forms, both very cool. However, in this world, although they also know that there is a Paideia region. Even Professor Oak has never come into contact with the Paideia region before, so he doesn't know what Pokemon there is. For now, it is a relatively closed region. Wait, he remembered that the evolution of Tan Xiaoxue had very special requirements, so can his Tan Xiaoxue still evolve? Chapter 53 Xiao Huang, get it. Arthur was somewhat conflicted. Now he didn't need to consider how to evolve Tan Sama, after all, he couldn't evolve any. But Arthur would definitely train Tan Sama. What if he got one someday? Moreover, Professor Oak should be very interested in Tan Sama. As for Ponyta's Pokemon egg, Arthur didn't want to train it. For Arthur, ordinary Ponyta was dispensable, even if it was a Ponyta with elite potential. Unless it was a Ponyta from the Galar region. Arthur still decided to send Ponyta away. The first person he thought of was Casey May. He had already sent Casey May Happiny and Minccino Pokemon eggs, and now these two Pokemon have hatched. If he gave Casey May another Ponyta, Casey May could train it. Arthur was very confident about this. After all, Casey May was really good at training Pokemon. Moreover, once Ponyta evolves into Rapidash, it is one of the most suitable Pokemon to be used as a mount. Gary and himself both have Arcanine, so they don't particularly need Rapidash. But then again, is this his system or Casey's system? Most of the Pokemon eggs that appeared were given to Casey. Of course, the main reason is that these Pokemon are really not suitable for him, and Arthur himself doesn't need them. Of course, the most important thing is Kudo Shinichi's reasoning ability. Before, Giovanni and Watari thought that Arthur's reasoning ability was very strong, but they didn't know that many times, Arthur relied on the information that the Traverser knew more than others and the information investigated through the waveguide. Now, I can use this reasoning ability to reason, and if I really encounter those cases in the future, I can also rely on this reasoning ability to solve the problem. No matter what, this time, we also wiped out a base of the Rocket Team. For our special brigade, it is a very meaningful thing. After thinking about it, Du said to everyone, this can be regarded as a staged victory. Maybe. Okay, I am going back to Pallet Town. This time, I fully understand my shortcomings. Contact me when there is a mission later. Arthur said to Du meaningfully. Okay, Arthur, you have a good rest. If there is anything, I will contact you. Du nodded slightly to Arthur. Then, Arthur said hello to Giovanni and Bruno and left. Although Giovanni seemed to want to ask him to help find his son, Arthur didn't have this intention now. At least he had to wait until he had the confidence to face Giovanni. Although Arthur seems to be very strong now, and even suppressed Surd before, compared with Giovanni and other real strong men, Arthur is still a world apart. Two elites, I'm leaving now. If you need anything, feel free to contact me. Giovanni said goodbye to Arthur when he saw him leave. Well, I'll come back to practice with you when I'm free, Giovanni. Bruno patted Giovanni on the shoulder and said. Okay. After Giovanni left, Du asked Bruno, it seems that you are really optimistic about Giovanni. Giovanni? Although he looks cold and difficult to approach, I can feel that he is a very good person. Bruno stroked his chin and said, as for whether Giovanni can be trusted, I don't know. Is that so? Come on, help me take these people away. Du was disappointed with Bruno's IQ. He is simply incomparable to Arthur. It is still interesting to cooperate with Arthur. There is a different tacit understanding between them. Although Arthur didn't say anything before, Du felt that the other party might know something. It's just that there are too many people, so Arthur is not convenient to say it. Xiao Huang, let's go. Arthur returned to Xiao Huang's house and invited Xiao Huang. Brother, are all the things settled? Xiao Zhe saw Arthur coming back and asked Arthur expectantly. Yes. Du came here in person, and we wiped out the Rocket Team's base together. You are safe for the time being. However, it is difficult for me to guarantee whether the Rocket Team has a second base in Viridian City. You should be careful in the future. Arthur also reminded Xiao Zhe when he saw him, especially the information about you and I knowing each other, and the information about Xiao Huang, it is best not to spread it, otherwise you will be in danger. I know. Xiao Zhe repeatedly assured Arthur, don't worry, Xiao Zhe, I am just an ordinary forest ranger, and I don't know anything about those things. As for Xiao Huang, I have to trouble you to take Xiao Huang to Professor Oak. Xiao Zhe would not hesitate to sell Xiao Huang to Professor Oak. Professor Oak is a world-famous researcher with a good reputation in the entire Pokemon world. If even Professor Oak cannot be trusted, then no one in this world can be trusted. Even in Xiao Zhe's view, Professor Oak's acceptance of Xiao Huang is an opportunity that can only be encountered but not sought for. Okay, Xiao Huang, come on board. It's still a long way from here to Pallet Town. Let's ride the Arcanine together. Arthur released the Arcanine, rode on it first, and then invited Xiao Huang again. Xiao Huang quickly looked at his uncle, and after getting his uncle's nod, he sat behind Arthur. Okay, uncle, we'll leave first. If you have anything, you can come to the laboratory at any time. Then Arthur waved to Xiao Zhe and said goodbye. Okay, Xiao Huang, remember to listen to Arthur. Xiao Zhe reminded Xiao Huang. By the way, Xiao Huang, where are your Pokemon? Arthur reminded Xiao Huang as if he had thought of something. Hickey? I have already got the Pokeball from my uncle and captured it. Xiao Huang said this with an extremely subtle look. Big brother, you are right, the Pokeball is the witness of my friendship with Hickey, we will be together forever. Chapter 54 Arthur, I suspect Oak has been acting all along. Arcanine was very fast. Even with Arthur and Xiao Huang on its back, it took only 20 minutes to get from Changpan City to Pallet Town. This was because Xiao Huang might not be able to sit steadily. Otherwise, Arcanine could definitely show why it became the dream mount of countless nobles in ancient times. This is the laboratory. You will live here from now on. After Arthur got off Arcanine's back, he whispered to Xiao Huang, whose eyes were full of curiosity. I know. I won't embarrass myself. Xiao Huang nodded repeatedly. She knew that this was an opportunity that her uncle had fought for her. It was not only for her future, but also for her safety. She still needed to work hard. Moreover, she also wanted to become a glorious Interpol and fight against those criminals who poached Pokemon. Arthur, you are back? Who is she? Gary spotted Arthur as soon as he entered the laboratory, and then looked at him suspiciously. He had golden hair, was very petite, and had a cute face, but he had no figure and no temperament. But Arthur brought her back. Could it be that Arthur likes this kind of child? Thinking of this, Gary looked at Arthur with a hint of contempt. Although he was also looking for a girlfriend at a young age, he was a man. He only looked for older sisters in their 20s, but what about Arthur? The child he brought back was probably only 11 or 12 years old. TSK, I need to take Arthur to experience the goodness of older sisters. This is Xiao Huang, a very interesting child. If nothing unexpected happens, she will become a member of the laboratory in the future. Arthur glanced at Gary and explained. He always felt that this little B*************** D seemed to have misunderstood something, but it was not important. The important thing was that Arthur decided to train Xiao Huang. If Gary can't even beat Xiao Huang by then, it will be embarrassing. Hearing Arthur's words, Gary looked at Arthur with more and more teasing eyes. He didn't believe that this yellow-haired girl could do anything after becoming a member of the laboratory. Uncle, this is Xiao Huang, she has the power of Evergreen. Arthur ignored Gary and brought Xiao Huang to Professor Oak. Team Rocket seems to be looking for clues about the power of Evergreen, so I brought her back. Power of Evergreen? Professor Oak was also surprised when he heard Xiao Huang's information. He knew a lot about the power of Evergreen. Only those who truly loved Pokemon were qualified to obtain this power. He almost had the power of Tokiwa, but at that time, the time was too short, and Celebi didn't have time to leave the power on him. However, after seeing Xiao Huang, Professor Oak's face also showed a nostalgic look, as if he was missing his youth. Arthur silently observed Professor Oak's situation, and he found that his reasoning ability seemed to have improved a lot compared to before. By the way, my uncle had seen Celebi when he was young, and even traveled through time and space. So when he traveled through time and space, would I go over to join in the fun? I think so. After all, Arthur would not miss the matter of capturing the main members of Team Rocket. In other words, in fact, my uncle had seen me a long time ago, but he still pretended not to know. TSK, he is really an old C****T. I just don't know if I took Casey May with me at that time. If I did, my God, it's exciting to think about it. In that case, you should stay in the laboratory. The salary will be the same as that of an ordinary assistant in the laboratory. If you perform well in the future, you can gradually improve your salary. Professor Oak did not hesitate and directly agreed to let Xiao Huang stay in the laboratory. So easy to agree? Xiao Huang was curious and asked. She originally thought that she would need to ask for a long time before Professor Oak would take her in. After all, this is a job that countless people dream of. Not to mention Xiao Huang, even Gary was dumbfounded at this time. Why? Why can Arthur enjoy such treatment directly just because he brought back a child? He wanted to arrange his girlfriends to work in the laboratory before, but his grandfather did not agree. As a result, Arthur brought back a child and agreed directly. Who is your grandson? Well, I believe in Arthur, and I also believe in the child favored by Shelebi. Professor Oak nodded slightly and said, moreover, you can talk to Pokemon, which is the ability that countless researchers dream of. Just this point, you can go to all the laboratories to work. Talk to Pokemon? Gary heard this. I am jealous. He had known that Arthur had mastered the power of Waveguide, and Gary also tried to master the power of Waveguide, but he had not mastered it after studying for a while. As a result, now there is another child with special abilities, and he is also a child favored by Shelebi. Well, why am I not valued by those legendary Pokemon? Yes, people who have mastered the power of Evergreen can talk to Pokemon, and naturally will gain the favor of many Pokemon. Arthur patted Xiao Huang's shoulder and sighed. Whether it is a researcher or a trainer-breeder, Covet has such an ability. In my opinion, this may be the most powerful ability. If possible, I want a powerful psychic. Gary curled his lips and pretended to be disdainful. Most psychics also need to develop psychics. At this time, Casey May came over, and then looked at Xiao Huang on the side and said, "You are Xiao Huang, I am Casey May, and I will live in the laboratory from now on. If Gary bullies you, tell me. I will help you deal with him." Sister, Gary was speechless. What does it mean to clean yourself up? Could it be that Casey May thought that he would be interested in such a little girl and liar? How is this possible? I like big sisters. Hello, I am Xiao Huang. Xiao Huang was stunned by Casey May's arrival, but he still greeted her obediently. Okay, to celebrate Xiao Huang's arrival, Casey May, let's have hot pot today. Professor Oak waved his hand. Chapter 55. Otherwise, why do you think there is no champion in Kanto? Grandpa, do you want to eat more again? Casey May glanced at Professor Oak in a chastising manner. In order to take care of Grandpa's safety, Casey May usually controls Professor Oak's diet. However, today, Xiao Huang just came home, and Casey May finally decided to treat him with hot pot. Xiao Huang quickly integrated into the family, especially with the active cooperation of Arthur and Casey May. Moreover, Xiao Huang was not a naughty child, but very well behaved. Everyone liked this well-behaved, sensible, and Pokemon-loving child. And Arthur's Tan Xiaoshi also hatched quickly. Even Professor Oak didn't know Tan Xiaoshi, a Pokemon, which greatly aroused his research enthusiasm. His enthusiasm for Tan Xiaoshi even surpassed almost all Pokemon in the laboratory. On the other side, in the special base below the Tokiwa gym, Giovanni saw Surd, who had just finished the operation, and asked with a sullen face, "Why did the Alliance people find the location of the base, and they have already touched the door? You didn't even react." Surd's face was also extremely ugly. "Sorry, boss, our surveillance is monitored by people 24 hours a day. This time, we were negligent." Alliance also came prepared. At this moment, although she wanted to say that you didn't do it well, didn't you? After all, the boss of Team Rocket followed the Alliance to destroy the base of Team Rocket. Such a thing would probably make people laugh. Moreover, Tokiwa City is Giovanni's territory, but they came to Tokiwa City without Giovanni knowing. No matter how you look at it, it is Giovanni's own problem. But can Serd throw all the responsibility to Giovanni at this time? Definitely not, instead she needs to take the blame. Seeing Serd take the blame, Giovanni's expression became much better. Is there a spy in the base? Serd frowned, thought for a moment, and then answered, it should be. It is very likely that it is the people watching the surveillance. Before, I didn't get the alarm, and when I reacted, you had already rushed in. In this case, it seems that there is a problem with the surveillance personnel, but the base was destroyed in your hands after all, and you can escape the death penalty. Next, when you recover from your injury, go to Johto region. I hope you won't let me down. Chengua said in a serious tone. He naturally knew that he also needed to take the blame for the base problem in Changpan City this time. Serd, this guy, can't be a spy. This woman is often crazier than Carr and others. Just like this time, Serd's arm was broken by Arthur's Pidgeot, and even 6 ribs were broken, and his internal organs were bleeding. As a result, this woman insisted on going to another base, and she didn't even cry out in pain. Such a woman is indeed crazy enough. Yes, boss. Serd did not refuse after hearing this. Team Rocket controlled the 2 major regions of Johto region and Kanto region. Arranging him to Johto region was not considered to be a villain. If she was arranged to go to the Orange Islands, that would be what Serd could not accept. Well, as for Arthur, we can't touch him for the time being. Giovanni seemed to have noticed Serd's mood and said again, the old guy Oak is very powerful. We can't provoke him before our plan succeeds. Otherwise, you are courting death. If he wants to deal with you, I can't protect you. So powerful? Serd was also shocked after hearing this and asked in disbelief. Why do you think there is no champion in Kanto region? Giovanni looked at Serd speechlessly. If we talk about ability, Serd is not bad, at least he is definitely not worse than any senior executive in Team Rocket, but when it comes to intelligence ability, Serd seems to be a little worse. Oh, by the way, Serd had been poaching Pokemon in other regions before joining Team Rocket. He was recruited to Team Rocket because he was valued by me, so it's okay. Isn't it because no one can defeat the Elite Four at the same time? If we talk about the level of Pokemon, I'm afraid the Pokemon of the Elite Four in the Kanto region is the highest, right? Serd sighed in his heart when he mentioned this. Please give me flowers. 0. You can say that there is no champion in the Kanto region, but you can't say that the Kanto region is really weak. If an elite like Du ran to other regions, it would be absolutely no problem for him to become a champion. But in the Kanto region, Du had tried to become the champion several times, but failed in the end. Oak was already the champion of Kanto 30 years ago, and now Agatha, one of the Elite Four, is also defeated by her. Agatha is also as strong as the champion. In the past few decades, anyone who wants to challenge the Kanto champion has been stopped by Agatha. Giovanni said with emotion, and Oak's strength is even higher than Agatha. As a person from that generation, although Giovanni has never fought with Oak, he also knows how powerful Professor Oak is. Unless that plan succeeds, even now he has no confidence in defeating Professor Oak. Is that so? Serd's expression was also extremely ugly when he heard this. Could it be that he had to swallow his anger like this? However, if Team Rocket gets rid of Arthur, will it bear the wrath of Professor Oak? By then, Team Rocket will also suffer heavy losses, which seems to be a good thing for Team Galactic. In this way, the days passed one by one. On this day, Arthur was just like usual, coaching Squirtle and the others to practice. Professor Oak came over with a smile. Arthur, are you free tomorrow? Tomorrow? Is there anything? Arthur stopped and motioned Squirtle to practice freely next, and asked Professor Oak in confusion. These days, he is quite free. That guy Du is still very conscientious. I am now a member of the Rocket Team Special Brigade. Interpol Kanto branch can't control me, and Du has given me enough rest time during this period. It's so beautiful. It's like this, Cinnabar Island is going to hold a fossil resurrection technology exhibition conference. I want you and Casey to represent our laboratory to attend. Professor Oak took out an invitation and said. Chapter 56 Looking for Blaine's Trace. Fossil Resurrection Technology. I remember that some research institutions had already resurrected fossil Pokémon a long time ago, right? Arthur was stunned and asked Professor Oak. Yes. But the resurrection technology was not mature before, and the success rate was too low. To revive a fossil Pokémon, the cost is at least more than 100 million, and the success rate is less than 10%. Professor Oak said with emotion, but I heard that the technology has been substantially upgraded now. The resurrection cost has been reduced to less than 10 million, and as long as complete and viable cells can be extracted, the success rate will be increased to more than 80%. 10 million is actually not a small amount. Arthur's mouth twitched slightly. The price of a starter Pokémon on the black market is only about 1 million or 250. Of course, if the talent is excellent, the price may be a little higher. And Pokémon like Eevee, the price is between 2 million and 5 million, but this is talking about Pokémon with normal talent. However, with 10 million, if you are lucky, you may not be able to buy a Pokémon with elite potential. Yes, but this should be temporary. In the future, this technology should continue to improve, and it should be no problem to reduce the cost by at least half. Professor Oak has many sources of information, and he will not hide it in front of Arthur. 5 million is still high enough. Except for a few special fossil Pokémon, it is not worth resurrecting them for battle. Of course, for you researchers, or some collectors. It is still very good to resurrect some fossil Pokémon for special research and collection. Arthur couldn't help but sigh. Yes, if I hadn't been busy recently, I would have wanted to revive some fossil Pokémon for research. Professor Oak said with deep conviction, studying these fossil Pokémon is very important for us to understand the history before the emergence of humans. We can also understand the development history of Pokémon. What a pity. I must finish my research project as soon as possible, and at least take time to study those fossil Pokémon next year. As long as you like. Hearing Professor Oak's words, Arthur also remembered the existence of Dasha Valley at this time. There seemed to be many living fossil Pokémon there, even living Aerodactyl. However, Dasha Valley is not well known now, and the fossil boom has not set off in the Kanto region. It is estimated that it will take this press conference for the craze for fossils to really set off. But why let me and Casey May go together? Aren't you and Gary going? Arthur asked after receiving the invitation. Casey May is now my assistant, and her identity is no secret. To a certain extent, she can also represent me. You are also well known in Kanto now. If you go alone, your status may not be high enough, but if you go together, you can represent me. As for Gary, he is just a child who has not traveled yet, and he cannot represent me to attend such a conference. Professor Oak shook his head slightly and said, as for me, the research I am doing has entered a critical moment. And this press conference is of no significance to us, so we can just send a representative. The other professors who have reached a certain status are almost the same. So the professors who took the initiative to participate in this conference are actually not in a good position? Arthur now understands how professors should be graded. In addition, I hope you can help me investigate something on Cinnabar Island. Then, Professor Oak said solemnly. What's the matter? Arthur asked hurriedly. I have a good friend, Blaine, the gym leader of Cinnabar Gym, who has been out of contact recently. I want you to go to Cinnabar Island to investigate Blaine's whereabouts. Professor Oak was also full of entanglement when he mentioned Blaine. Blaine? I remember he was a fire elite in Kanto region, right? Arthur raised his eyebrows. Could it be that in this world, he is also a member of Team Rocket? Oh, by the way, it seems that he has also heard that Mutwo seems to be researched by Blaine. It seems that this is also the case in this world. Yes, but Lao Xia is not very good at fighting. Although he has been a fire elite for a period of time, he came down immediately. That should be considered a tacit understanding. Professor Oak shook his head slightly and said, however, in terms of research, his ability is still very good. So Blaine's fire elite status was actually obtained through a backdoor. No wonder Blaine was an elite for only 1 year. It turns out there is such a secret. The weakest Kanto elite in history? Of course, if Blaine didn't have the strength, the Kanto Alliance would not have allowed Blaine to become an elite. I'm afraid this old guy has the strength of an elite, but compared to his peers, he is a little bit worse. I will go find Blaine after I arrive at Cinnabar Island. Arthur nodded slightly, and then asked, "Are you worried that he is colluding with Team Rocket?" Professor Oak was silent for a long time after hearing this, and then said, "I don't know about this. If he is colluding with Team Rocket, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Blaine knows what to do and what not to do. I'm worried that Team Rocket will capture Blaine, which is the most difficult thing." "I know." Arthur didn't refuse. "But will you take Casey 2.1 to Cinnabar Island?" Arthur was a little excited. After all, the hot springs in Cinnabar Island are very famous in the whole Pokemon world. "Well, the organizer has prepared everything, so just take Casey out for vacation." Then Professor Oak continued to add, "Besides, you can meet a lot of people this time, which will help your future interpersonal relationships. Even if those people don't come in person, they will arrange their favorite assistants to come. After a few years, maybe they will be professors. After all, everyone has come this way. Okay, you have created the opportunity for me, don't worry, I will not miss such an opportunity and treat Casey well." Chapter 57 Squirtle Evolution. "Yes, I understand." Arthur did not refuse Professor Oak's kindness, even though he himself did not like the so-called social circle. But some things must be done. "You continue to train." After thinking for a while, Professor Oak glanced at Squirtle and said, "Squirtle's level is enough, and it's almost time to evolve." "Jenny." Squirtle looked at Arthur expectantly. The more he knew about Arthur and Arthur's Pokemon, the stronger his control over the Wave Guide was, and the more he knew the strength of his brothers and sisters. Neither Arcanine nor Sylveon could be compared with him. Even Pidgeot and Ninetales were much stronger than him. Squirtle was still incomparable to Covet, and they all needed strong strength to fight for Arthur. "Can it evolve?" Arthur looked at Squirtle in surprise. Not to mention, before he knew it, Squirtle's level had reached the advanced beginner level. Don't underestimate this advanced beginner level. You should know that Squirtle has been with Arthur for less than a month. It is very rare to be able to train Squirtle's level in such a short time. Obviously, the training method of Kamesun Ryu is really suitable for Squirtle. Of course, not all Squirtless are suitable. Gary Squirtle now often practices with his Squirtle, but his Squirtle has reached the advanced beginner level, while Gary's is only the intermediate beginner level. It seems that his Squirtle's control over the Wave Guide is much stronger than Gary's Squirtle, and the gap between the two has been widened. Squirtle has indeed entered a bottleneck period and needs to evolve. It's not that Squirtle can't level up without evolution, but the progress speed will slow down a lot. "But, do you want to evolve directly?" Arthur touched Squirtle's head. "If it evolved, it would not be so silly. I wonder if the feel of this smooth turtle head will change." Feeling the surge of Squirtle's Wave Guide, Arthur chuckled and said, "But, since you want to evolve, then evolve. I won't hinder you, and there are benefits to your evolution." "Jenny." After getting Arthur's consent, Squirtle did not hesitate at the moment, and a white light emanated directly from his body. This scene made Arthur's mouth twitch. Ash's Pokemon are good at evolving in battle, while his own Pokemon often evolve after getting his consent. Sure enough, his Pokemon are waiting for him to call them to evolve before they evolve. He is not Ash, who doesn't like to let Pokemon evolve. In Arthur's view, Pokemon that do not evolve may be a little cuter, but not evolving will also hinder them from exploring their potential. Just like among Ash's Pokemon, there are many Pokemon with good talents, but because of Ash, they did not choose to evolve, and thus did not tap their own talents. Of course, it also has a lot to do with Ash's fighting method. Ash is not very suitable for, nor is he good at commanding bulky Pokemon. Even Snorlax is a lighter style in Ash's hands. Look at the Sinnoh region. Torterra, who is obviously very good, was directly played by Ash. It is obviously a very good Pokemon, but it can be regarded as the worst performance of the three starters in Ash's hands. It can only be said that Torterra is really not very suitable for Ash. Therefore, letting Pokémon not evolve is also in line with Ash's fighting style. As Squirtle evolved into Wartortle, Arthur felt that Wartortle's waveguide was improved a lot. And Wartortle's level also directly reached the advanced middle level. Kami. Wartortle looked much more mature and stable than Squirtle before. Pokémon evolution is also an important part of their growth. Very good, now I should call you Wartortle. Arthur rubbed Wartortle's head. Although it was not as comfortable as Squirtle's head, it was not bad. Then he continued to add, however, because of evolution. Wartortle, your waveguide is messed up. Next, you need to stabilize the waveguide as soon as possible, and then continue to train. Kami. Wartortle's expression became serious. It felt that it was really wrong. Just evolving and having a little improvement in strength, it caused the waveguide to become disordered. This is really wrong. Wartortle felt that he was not only sorry for Arthur's teachings, but also sorry for his previous efforts. In the future, he must work harder in controlling the waveguide. For punishment himself, he will double his training in the next period of time. Gary Squirtle, after seeing Wartortle, was full of envy. Big Brother has evolved. It would be great if he could evolve too. It seems that he still needs to train harder. We finally got to Cinnabar Island. Arthur got off the boat with a pale face and complained to Casey May, who was supporting him. If I had known that the waves near Cinnabar Island were so big and there were even whirlpools, would not have come here by boat, but directly sat on Pidgeot's back. Although his arm was held by Casey May, Arthur could feel Casey May's conscience and tolerance for him. But seasickness was something Arthur never expected. He, a brave man of waveguide and the light of justice in Interpol, would actually roll a boat. If this were to spread, I'm afraid countless criminals would laugh their heads off. Okay, let's go to the hotel prepared by the organizer first, and then we can soak in the hot springs. Casey May looked around and whispered in Arthur's ear, I specially prepared a very sexy swimsuit. Arthur's eyes flickered slightly, and he seemed to have heard similar words somewhere, but for a moment, he couldn't remember. However, Arthur was also looking forward to what Casey May said. The hot springs on Cinnabar Island are world famous, and this time, only he and Casey May came out together, and Arthur was very much looking forward to it. Chapter 58 The Truth Behind Steven's Retirement. Arthur, is that you? When Arthur and Casey were checking in at the hotel front desk, a familiar voice reached Arthur's ears. Arthur looked closely and found a handsome man walking towards him. Arthur also recognized the other party's identity. Mr. Steven, long time no see. I didn't expect that you were here too. After all, the fossil resurrection research technology has the investment of our company. Steven replied like a handsome gentleman. I see. Arthur also showed a look of realization after hearing this, but as the champion of Hoenn, is it really okay for you to leave the Hoenn region rashly? It's okay, I have asked Wallace to take over for me. Steven chuckled and waved his hand. He looked around again, no outsiders were around, and whispered, I plan to resign from the champion position. Let Wallace replace me, his strength is already fully capable of taking on the position of Hoenn champion. Resign? Then you will have enough time to mine? Arthur looked at Steven with a subtle expression and asked. That's not the case. The main reason is that I feel that I am not very suitable for the position of champion. Steven then said mysteriously, besides, Wallace also needs the position of champion to do something. You should know the Pokémon contest, right? Well, that is a competition for coordination trainers. Arthur nodded slightly, and there was a little guess in his heart. In fact, this competition has always been a small folk competition. It has gradually become formalized in recent years with the promotion of Wallace and his master. Steven began to explain to Arthur, however, if you want to continue to promote the Pokémon contest. Wallace's current status is still a little insufficient, so the position of champion is a matter of course. This is not to say that I am giving the championship privately. After all, Wallace himself has the strength to become a champion, and I don't plan to continue to be a champion. In addition, the contest is very promising, and I am also very optimistic about the future of the contest hall. If the Hoenn region can vigorously promote the contest, it will also get a lot of benefits. Contest? In fact, I am also optimistic about it, but it is impossible to replace the Alliance competition. Arthur thought for a while and added, however, it also gives Pokemon and Trainer another possibility. Yeah, I feel pretty good too. Pokemon don't just fight each other. Steven heard Arthur's words and showed a look of as expected, then he looked at Casey May beside him and said, okay, I won't bother you. I have been on Cinnabar Island these days, let's find time to eat and then have a good chat. After that, Steven patted Arthur's shoulder, nodded to Casey May and left. Arthur, do you know Steven? At this time, Casey May asked Arthur. As for the fact that Steven seemed to have misunderstood their relationship before, Casey May simply ignored it. After all, it is really hard to say whether it was a misunderstanding or not. Well, he is a very good person, suitable to be friends. Arthur nodded slightly and said, he helped their family catch some thieves before. Is that so? Casey May didn't ask much after hearing this. If necessary, Casey May believed that Arthur would tell her. As for Arthur's work, she didn't need to ask too much. She just needed to do the logistics work for Arthur. She served Arthur's Pokemon comfortably, and now Arthur couldn't leave her at all. Sure enough, with Devon Company as the backing, the funding of this laboratory is not as much as normal. The hotel prepared for us is also quite good. When Arthur saw where he and Casey May would live for the next few days, he also showed a satisfied look. This is a Japanese-style courtyard with an area of about 200 square meters, and there is even a large indoor hot spring inside. In Cinnabar Island, a world tourist destination, such a small courtyard is also considered to be worth every inch of land. Of course, the most important thing is that if you don't have money and identity, it is difficult to make an appointment for such a courtyard. It's really good. There's even an indoor hot spring. I thought the hot springs here would be more public. Casey May sighed after looking around. It's a pity that they only arranged 3 days of accommodation. If we want to renew the lease, we need to pay for it ourselves. Money doesn't matter. If you like, we can stay here for a few more days. Arthur then asked Casey May, but, are we going to take a hot spring bath now, or go to Cinnabar Island for a stroll? Let's go for a stroll. Casey May's eyes flickered slightly. I heard that there is a fireworks conference on Cinnabar Island these days. Is that so? Arthur had a little expectation in his heart when he heard this. It seems that he has not participated in a fireworks conference since he came to this world. Not to mention in this world, even in his previous life, he hadn't played with fireworks for several years. Family members, who knows, if fireworks are not allowed, what's the point of celebrating the new year? Then I'll go change into a yukata first. I've bought your yukata for you, remember to put it on. Casey May pointed to Arthur's space backpack and reminded him. Okay. Arthur didn't know about the yukata. If it were Arthur himself, he would probably choose to buy it temporarily after arriving at Cinnabar Island. But with Casey May, it's different. She's really his good wife, Zhao. The so-called yukata is not the kind of kimono that you wear when you take a bath, but the Japanese kimono that you wear outside. For example, when you go to temple fairs, you will wear these yukatas. In the minds of many people, kimonos are actually the image of yukatas. After a while, Arthur and Casey May changed their clothes. Seeing Casey May's temperament change greatly after changing her clothes, Arthur's index finger moved. He had a premonition that there would be a bloody storm today. How about it? Doesn't it look good? Seeing Arthur's silence, Casey May asked carefully. This style of dress was the first time she appeared in front of Arthur. Chapter 59, Going to Kalos to see an orthopedic doctor. Very nice, Casey. Seeing Casey like this, Arthur quickly grabbed Casey's hand and whispered, seeing you like this, I feel hungry. Hungry? Casey looked at Arthur with doubts. What kind of love words is this? Why can't I understand it? Beauty is a feast for the eyes. Saying this, Arthur touched Casey's lips. Now there are no light bulbs around them, so there are fewer concerns when doing things. After being speechless for a moment, Casey felt happy in her heart. Although this guy's words were a bit rustic, it was always good to be willing to say them. Let's go, this is the first time we go out alone. Arthur took Casey out of the door and said with emotion. Well. When Casey May heard Arthur mention this, she looked at Arthur with some resentment. This guy finally remembered this. Why didn't he think of taking her out for a trip? However, Casey May herself is not a person who likes to run around. On the contrary, she is a person who can stay at home. And this time, she can even look forward to what will happen between the two of them. For that matter 057, Casey May is both nervous and looking forward to it. Although she and Arthur have practiced this several times, when it really comes to the point, Casey May is still a little panicked. Of course, she is not afraid. Some things, if you experience them more, will gradually produce inertia. Perhaps in Casey May's subconscious mind, she has been looking forward to the next thing. It's so lively. Walking on the crowded streets with Arthur holding her hand, Casey May took a sip of a special drink and said with emotion. It's really lively, Casey May, you know me, I don't really like places with too many people. But now I feel that it's not bad to come to a place like this occasionally. Arthur held the soft and boneless hand and said affectionately, I'm sorry, I didn't care about you enough before. No, in fact, I don't really like to run around, and it's enough to take care of Pokemon in the laboratory. Casey shook her head slightly and whispered, of course, it would be better if you could spare some time to stay at home. Speaking of the latter, a trace of worry flashed in Casey's eyes. Arthur did not hide what he was doing from her. He was going against Team Rocket. Casey supported Arthur's behavior. After all, some things always had to be done by someone, and Team Rocket had to be stopped. She also wanted to see Arthur become a hero. But going against Team Rocket was indeed too dangerous. This made Casey very worried, but she could only help Arthur train and take care of Pokemon at most. As for fighting, this was really not what she was good at. It would be great if Arthur had a strong enough trainer to protect him. This was also what Casey often fantasized about. She had tried to become a trainer before, but she also knew that she was not good at fighting. She was not even as good as Gary. It would be better for Pokemon to fight by themselves than for her to command Pokemon. Sometimes, Casey even thought that if Arthur went to find someone as strong as Cynthia, trainer as a girlfriend, can it reduce the threat? As for me. After all, my relationship with Arthur is a bit special. Even in the future, I am afraid it will be difficult for me to be with Arthur openly. Otherwise, I and Arthur may be beaten to the Kalos region to see an orthopedic doctor. Moreover, Arthur, the light of justice, must not have any stigma. Don't worry, Casey May, I will try my best to stay in the Kanto region in the next few years. Arthur reached out his hand, hugged Casey May's shoulders and comforted her. At least we have to slowly solve the threat of Team Rocket. Speaking of this, Arthur felt a headache. The threat of Team Rocket was indeed great, but other regions seemed equally dangerous, and even in some aspects, they were even more dangerous than Kanto and Johto. The great disaster caused by the three gods of Hoenn region, the three dragons of creation, and finally even Arceus came out. Arthur felt that he was too weak to participate in such a battle even with a little system cheating. Unless one day, he really cultivated to the point where he could compete with gods with his mortal body, he would consider these issues. Of course, so many criminals were also good cash machines for Arthur. Yeah. Casey May was silently held in Arthur's arms while walking around the temple fair. Perhaps such a scene is likely to be transmitted to her grandfather and father, but she and Arthur grew up together, so it is normal for them to be close to each other, right? Arthur just wanted to prevent himself from getting lost. Well, perfect reason. After figuring this out, Casey May also enjoyed this feeling very well. It was very exciting. This is what she has been looking forward to. While accompanying Casey May to the temple fair and watching the fireworks conference, Arthur also studied the situation of Cinnabar Island through his wave power. Blaine is the gym trainer of Cinnabar Island, guarding the safety of Cinnabar Island, and has a very high status on the island. If he wants to help the Rockets build a base here and cover them, it is still very easy. It's just a pity that the wave guides here are too dense. After collecting for a while, Arthur chose to give up. Even the wave guide power is not omnipotent. However, Arthur is in Cinnabar Island. At Volcano, a special wave guide aura was found. This aura was much stronger than the wave guide of the Pokémon he currently had, and even stronger than Professor Oak's main Dragonite. The legendary Pokémon? Arthur soon had this guess. There are not many Pokémon that can live in Volcano, and they are legendary Pokémon: Moltres, Entei, Heatran. It can't be Groudon, right? But Arthur wrote this down. Now he is not strong enough to provoke such a great god. When he becomes stronger in the future, he can take a risk. Chapter 60, The Spear of Shine and End, the real name is released. What's wrong? Arthur's expression changed, and Casey, who had been paying attention to him, noticed it and asked quickly. Facing Casey's concern, Arthur shook his head slightly and said, Cinnabar Island is not as simple as it seems on the surface, and it is still quite dangerous. Dangerous? Casey was also shocked when he heard it. What on earth could make Arthur say it was dangerous? You know, although Arthur's strength is not as good as those elite champions, Arcanine and Sylveon are enough for Arthur to face most situations. Well, if the other party goes crazy, the entire Cinnabar Island may be destroyed. Arthur shook his head slightly. I won't provoke such an existence to death. Okay, I watched the fireworks and visited the temple fair. I am a little tired now. Let's go back and rest first. We have a meeting tomorrow. Okay. Hearing this, Casey did not refuse. Arthur himself is the kind of person who doesn't like shopping. Casey is very happy that Arthur can accompany her for such a long time today. Then Casey is also looking forward to what will happen next. In the hotel's private hot spring, Arthur was half leaning against the wall of the pool, resting in the pool. Not far from him was a wooden board with a bottle of drink on it. Sylveon was lying on the shore, stretching out his claws from time to time, trying to touch the spring water, but was scalded by the water and retracted. As for Arthur's other Pokémon, they were all resting in the Pokeball. Feeling Casey May approaching, Arthur took out the Pokeball and said to Sylveon, Okay, Sylveon, you come back first. By greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Sylveon looked at Arthur with dissatisfaction. When I'm useful, you call me little sweetie, and when I'm useless, you want to take me back directly, right? However, no matter how dissatisfied he was, Sylveon was still taken back. At the moment when Sylveon's Pokeball was taken back, Casey May walked in from outside. Seeing Arthur looking at her, Casey May was slightly embarrassed, and then she untied the outer kimono, wearing a set of purple and black clothes, and walked into the hot spring. This scene made Arthur's eyes light up. Casey May said that she had made sufficient preparations. Sure enough, Casey May knew herself. He liked this kind of vague beauty the most. At the moment, he didn't hesitate and hugged Casey May into his arms and asked Casey May softly, Do you know what will happen next? Casey May's eyes were slightly closed, and she was shy as if she couldn't stand the cool breeze. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and she snorted softly. Seeing Casey May like this, Arthur did not hesitate, and transformed into a king, summoned the legendary Spear of Shining at the end, and broke the 13 imprisons, releasing her true name. Feeling the murderous intent emanating from the Spear of Shining at the end, Casey May was shocked and subconsciously used the treasure, the 7-layer ring of blazing sky covering, but facing the attack of this A++ holy spear, it was too late for Casey May to make any defense at this moment. It was broken at the touch and was instantly covered by the holy light. The next day, Arthur and Casey May were awakened by the ringing of the bell. When Casey May woke up and saw Arthur for the first time, her eyes were full of tenderness. I finally gave everything to the man in front of me. However, was Arthur a little too much, or were all the brave men of Bodeo so strong? Casey May felt a little shattered, and Casey May was wondering, where did this guy learn all these things? Good morning. Arthur chose to flirt with Casey May for a while before saying, Why don't you not go to the meeting this morning? I can go by myself. How can this be? We are here on behalf of Grandpa. Casey May glanced at Arthur with a reproachful look. It was all because of Arthur that she was in this state. Now her stomach still hurts, and she keeps saying that she was protecting herself. What will be the result? I don't know if she will be embarrassed in front of outsiders today. Sorry, I have been patient for too long. Arthur looked at Casey May with apology. It was not his fault. Who made Casey May's endurance a little low? He could only find another way. He. Get up early. Professor Bill asked us to gather at the venue at 9:30. Casey May patted Arthur's shoulder and said, "Please give me flowers, 0. Professor Bill? Is he here to participate too? I remember he seems to be your classmate." Arthur raised his eyebrows. "He's my senior, but I'm not really familiar with him. That guy seems to have skipped grades when he was studying, so he's a real genius." Speaking of Professor Bill, Casey May sighed. Grandpa said that many researchers were recruited or even coerced by the Rockets. I don't know if Professor Bill was also recruited by the Rockets. When you see him later, you can ask him, maybe you can find out. As she said this, Casey May also stood up, but this action also made her gasp. After glaring at Arthur with dissatisfaction, she continued the next step. "It seems that you twisted your foot when you were visiting the fireworks conference, so don't wear high heels today." Arthur saw this and quickly suggested, "It seems that this is the only way." Casey sighed, "I will introduce you when we get to the venue. Most people will actually give face to Grandpa. However, because Grandpa is so famous, there are actually some people in the older generation who are unhappy with Grandpa. Of course, they won't say it openly." "I know." Arthur nodded slightly. "Besides, Stephen and the others will be here later. Stephen told me the names of some people yesterday. Professor Elm will come in person, and Professor Rowan will arrange assistants to come. Professor Rowan rarely participates in these commercial activities. As for Kongmu, it is normal for him to come from Johto region." Casey nodded slightly. These two professors are the most familiar to them. Kongmu himself came from Professor Oak Laboratory. He is their senior brother and can be regarded as one of their own. As for Professor Rowan, he is Professor Oak's senior, and the relationship between the two sides has always been very good. Professor Aurea Juniper is coming from Unova region. Arthur's expression was a little subtle when he mentioned Professor Aurea Juniper. "It's that woman, Professor Aurea Juniper. You are listening to it in Eugene Light novels."